Well, what you're seeing right now, like this maze of lights and sounds and endless activity in this fun zone area, it's actually a pretty perfect picture of what's happening inside our brains every single day. Everything around us seems to be fighting for our attention. The thoughts that we think, they're not just random thoughts floating through our mind. They are carefully constructed, intentionally placed in this effort to capture our thinking. If you walk through this building, you can't help but be struck by just the intricate web of lights and the bright images on oversized screens. But when I asked one of the workers about being in this environment all the time, he said, after a while, you don't even notice it. In other words, the pattern of noise and distraction just becomes normal. And I kind of wonder if that's what's happened to us in our world. We get so caught up in this pattern of thinking, always distracted, that we don't even notice it. The Apostle Paul warned about this in Romans 12, verse 2. He said, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The patterns of this world that Paul refers to could be understood as the pervasive thought patterns that are constantly being reinforced by our culture. Neuroscientific research shows that repeated thoughts strengthen neural connections, making these thought patterns just increasingly automatic. In other words, we think about what we think about without even thinking about it, and these patterns become deeply ingrained. They shape our perceptions, our emotions, our actions, without us even realizing it. In the book and in the study guide, different patterns of this world are identified. The pattern of insecurity, the pattern of distraction, the pattern of offense, the pattern of pleasure, and the pattern of despair. But in this session, I want to specifically examine the pattern of distraction, why this pattern is so pervasive, and how we can break free from it. Everywhere you look in this building, there are lights flashing, trying to get your attention. Every game is competing for your mental focus. And as you walk through, like every ping and every ding and every flash of light is designed to pull you in that direction. It's difficult in a place like this to have much focused thought. Like, this isn't where you want to come for a deep conversation. If you're spending an hour in prayer with God, this probably isn't where you would schedule that time. But I would just say outside this building, we experience a similar dynamic. The average person touches their phone 2,617 times a day. If you're really brave, I would say take a minute and check your screen time on your phone and just see how much time you're giving to different apps, how long you've spent scrolling through reels or stories. For the average person, these days, that number is like 7 hours a day on their screens. And here's the thing, that's not just developing a habit, it's developing a pattern that is literally rewiring our brains. In fact, it's this pattern of distraction that is determining a lot of our other thought patterns. For example, the pattern of distraction from our screens is creating a pattern of anxiety and insecurity. It's creating a pattern of offense and despair. Studies show that as our screen time grows, those patterns seem to become more prevalent as well. Many of us are trying to navigate our spiritual lives and regulate our emotions and find balance in our relationships with this constantly divided attention, constantly scattered focus, all these distractions. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 warns us. It says, "Be very careful then, be very intentional, be very focused then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity." And in a world full of distractions, Scripture teaches us to be careful with each step we take. Because every step you take, every thought you think is leading you somewhere, whether you know it or not. There's a story in Luke chapter 10 that helps us with this. Jesus and his disciples come to a town called Bethany. It's a few miles outside of Jerusalem, and they decide to stop and visit some close friends, Mary and Martha, who are sisters, and their brother Lazarus. We don't know the birth order. My guess is that Martha was the oldest because she's got some of that firstborn energy to her. Verse 38 says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. How did she know that they were coming? Well, she probably didn't. Jesus is likely stopping by their home unannounced with at least 12 disciples, probably even more than that. And Martha suddenly sees all these things coming at her, all kinds of distractions, so many things that need to happen. I can imagine her thoughts racing. Is the house clean? Where are they all going to sit? What are they going to eat? Do we have enough LaCroix? Do we at least have water that Jesus can turn into Alani Nu? Like, Martha is feeling it, and so she immediately gets to work. In verse 39, though, we're told that she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. So Martha runs into the kitchen while Mary sits down at the feet of Jesus on the floor, giving him her full attention. Verse 40 says Martha was distracted. There's the word. She was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. But listen, let me point out, it's not like she was being selfish. She wasn't in the kitchen scarfing down all the chicken nuggies while everybody else was in church. Like, she wasn't binge watching Bridgerton that she started the night before. Here's what we can say about her distractions. They weren't bad. In fact, what distracted her from Jesus was good. Hospitality is wonderful, and she shows love, which is a good thing. But that didn't mean that she still wasn't missing out on what was better. Martha becomes annoyed that she's doing all the work, and she wants Jesus to tell Mary to come help her. But here's how Jesus responded. He says to her, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one, Jesus says. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. Mary had chosen what is better. I've noticed that a lot of these games have a timer attached to them, like a countdown clock letting you know how much time you have left. And you have to see like how much you can do within a certain amount of time. The time creates a sense of urgency. That timer helps you keep focused on what's in front of you. Instead of looking around at all the other games, you're giving your full attention to the task at hand because time is running out. And the Bible teaches us to take that approach with the thoughts that we think, with the lives that we live. Psalm 90, verse 12 says, teach us to number our days, Lord, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. James 4:14 asks, what is your life? You're here, a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. What Martha didn't realize is how limited her time with Jesus was. She was distracted by all the preparations, but her time with Jesus was running out. Breaking free from these thought patterns takes intentional effort and disciplined thinking, takes lots of focus. The good news, though, is that our brain's neuroplasticity helps us do this. The more we choose to focus our fragmented attention on what really matters, the more our neural pathways will help us do that the next time. Every time we choose to sit at the feet of Jesus and give him our attention, we're reinforcing a new way of thinking. So let me just give you some practical strategies for breaking free from the pattern of distraction. Here's the first one, is learn to practice what I'll call the sacred pause. Before reaching for your phone, before clicking on a notification, before turning on the TV, pause for 3 seconds and ask yourself, is this drawing me closer to or further from God's purpose and his presence in my life? Is this interrupting my focus from something that deserves my attention? Second idea would be to create what I would call pattern interrupt moments. We need some strategic stops in our day where we set specific times to hit stop and we just shut down the distractions. We unplug the game, we turn off the device. The research is clear that even the mere presence of a phone during a conversation reduces the quality of that interaction and our ability to connect. So have some predetermined times of the day, every day, where the screens are out of reach and we can follow the example of Mary and be fully present. Third idea would be to implement attention training. This is really simple, but just start with 5 minutes of undistracted prayer and Bible reading. Then gradually increase the duration of that time. It's like building any muscle. You have to start small and build up, but you got to get started. Even just taking 3 minutes to pray when you wake up in the morning is a great first step. A fourth idea is to find a friend to help you focus. Share your desire to break free from the distractions in your life with a trusted friend. Show them your screen time. Let them challenge you and refocus you. One more idea would be to measure what matters. The pattern of distraction will keep you from thinking about what's most important. So what would it look like to start measuring meaningful moments of connection with Jesus and with others? And maybe you could try keeping a prayer journal that would allow you to look back and see your consistent connecting time as you sit at the feet of Jesus. There's something else fascinating about this pattern of distraction. When we're constantly distracted, we can miss the whispers of God in our lives. You think about Elijah in 1 Kings 19. God wasn't in the wind, and he wasn't in the earthquake or the fire. Those were all dramatic distractions. Instead, God was in the gentle whisper. And how many gentle whispers are we missing because we just get caught up in all the noise? Well, during our time together, you've probably had to work at least a little bit to not be distracted by some of the noise and lights around me. You've had to choose what you're going to give your focus to. And every time we choose to take Mary's posture and we focus on Jesus, we're not just fighting distractions. We're literally rewiring our brains and creating new patterns that teach us to choose what is better. There are 3 words to describe Martha in Luke 10: distracted, worried, and upset. And maybe those words describe you these days. They probably do if you're caught up in this pattern of distraction. So can I just invite you to join Mary at the feet of Jesus? Your thoughts will determine a pattern that will shape your life. The pattern of distraction will cause you to live a fragmented, worried, upset, and disconnected life. A pattern that focuses on Jesus will shape you to be present, intentional, connected, and transformed. In a world of distractions, Jesus reminds us only one thing is needed. Well, in our last session, we talked about how Jesus would use parables and tell stories to help people think differently about their thoughts. Stories have a way of bypassing our defenses and helping us see truth and apply it more clearly. So I want to end with a story. And as you watch it, let me just give you a few questions to focus on. First question is, when was the last time you sat in complete silence with God for more than 10 minutes? Second question to think about as you watch this story: if you could measure meaningful moments instead of screen time, what would your daily report look like? And then one last question: what's one step you could take today to choose what's better, like Mary did? There was once a loving father who took his young daughter to a spectacular circus. Unlike other fathers, he didn't have to save for the tickets. He actually owned the circus. In fact, he had created everything inside of it. Over the years, it had become much different than he had originally designed, but he was sure she would have a wonderful time and couldn't wait to share the experience with her. As they approached the massive tent together, neon lights flashed in hypnotic patterns. Music pulsed from a dozen different directions. Screens of all sizes displayed an endless stream of attractions. Don't miss this. Limited time only. Once in a lifetime experience, they promised. Stay close to me, the father said gently as he held tightly to her hand. But his daughter's eyes were already darting everywhere, consumed by the dazzling displays. Can I go look at that? She asked, pointing to the social media spectacular where performers were taking selfies with the visitors. Before waiting for an answer, she was already drifting toward it. The father watched as his daughter raced from attraction to attraction, barely noticing he was no longer beside her. She dove into the streaming circus where countless shows played simultaneously on countless screens. She got onto the infinite scroll carousel, and she was spun round and round
Her phone buzzed constantly with alerts about new acts starting somewhere in the park. Each notification pulled her in a new direction, always promising something better, something more exciting from the last. In the FOMO funhouse, mirrors showed her all the other shows that she was missing. She joined the frantic crowds at the instant gratification games, competing desperately for likes and views. The father remained present, watching, waiting. Sometimes she'd catch a glimpse of him in the distance, still standing where she'd left him. But there was always another attraction calling her name, another notification demanding her attention. But as time passed, a strange emptiness began to grow inside her. Despite experiencing everything the circus had to offer, nothing seemed to satisfy. The likes and the views felt hollow. The endless streams of content left her feeling somehow less content. The constant rush for the next experience left her feeling exhausted and alone. One quiet moment between the flash and noise of attractions, she heard a small voice inside her asking, "Remember when you used to just sit with your father in the backyard?" She stopped moving for the first time in what felt like forever. Looking around at the frantic crowd, she suddenly realized what she'd been missing all along. She turned and walked back through the circus, past all the flashing lights and screaming at screens, until she found him. Her father was sitting on a simple bench. It seemed out of place amongst all the chaos of the circus. Most people rushed past it, too busy with their phones to notice, but he was there, just as he'd always been, waiting patiently with a gentle smile. "I'm sorry," she whispered, sitting beside him. "I got so caught up in everything else, I just forgot." He gently put his arm around her, pulling her close to his side. For the first time since entering the circus, she felt truly at peace. Around them, the frenzy continued, lights flashing, music blaring, crowds rushing from one show to the next. But she had found something better. Later, as they walked together under the stars, she asked her father why he had let her get so lost in all the distractions. "Sometimes," he explained, "you have to lose yourself in everything else before you can find what truly matters."